You've been picturing the life you want like it's a screensaver. A clean image. The apartment, the launch, the body, the freedom. And it does almost nothing, because a picture you watch is a picture you stay outside of. The reason your visualization keeps fizzling has nothing to do with willpower. And by the end of this, you'll know how to make an imagined scene land on you with the weight of a real one. Start with how your inner world actually works when you daydream. You run a silent film. The future apartment shows up like a real estate photo, lit and empty. You hover above it like a drone. And here's what that cost you. A scene you only see is a scene happening to someone else. You're the audience. The subconscious files it under watched, right next to every show you've ever streamed and forgotten by morning. Now change one thing. Don't just see the apartment. Hear the specific creak of that floorboard near the window. Feel the cold of the door handle under your palm at the end of a long day. Smell coffee going stale in the kitchen because you've been too deep in your own work to finish the cup. Suddenly, you're not watching the room, you're standing in it. So what flipped? Why does adding a smell turn a postcard into a memory? Because your brain has no separate folder for things that happened and things I vividly imagined with my whole body. It uses overlapping machinery for both. A real memory of your old bedroom isn't stored as a single photo. It's stored as a bundle. The look of the light, the smell of the sheets, the sound of traffic outside, the feel of the mattress. When you recall it, those threads fire together and the whole thing snaps back into being. That bundling is the signature of something the mind treats as real. A flat visual has one thread. One thread is easy to dismiss. The mind sorts it into fantasy and moves on. The way you swipe past a stranger's vacation photos. 5 threads woven together produce something heavier. The mind starts treating it like an event with a location, a temperature, a soundtrack. And events change you. Pictures don't. This is why most people quit visualizing and decide it doesn't work for them. They tried. They sat there for 10 minutes running their silent drone footage, felt nothing shift, and concluded the whole thing was a scam for people who like vision boards. But they were never imagining. They were spectating. There's a canyon between the two, and almost nobody is told which side they're standing on. Think about the scenes that actually rewired you without any effort. The conversation that still makes your face hot 3 years later. You don't remember it as a photograph. You remember the exact tone of their voice, the heat in the room, the way your stomach dropped. Full sensory load. It went in deep and stayed because every channel was open at once. Your worst memories are masterclasses in how imprinting really works. You just never copied the technique on purpose. So copy it, take the version of you that already lives the way you want, and don't render it in HD silence. Build it in texture. If you're imagining shipping your first product, don't watch a graph go up. Feel the warmth of the laptop on your thighs at 2 in the morning. Maybe your phone is playing something retuned to 432 Hz through a tune, link in the description. And that low frequency just sits in the room like furniture. Hear the single notification chime cut through it. Feel your own shoulders drop an inch as the thing finally goes live. The specifics aren't decoration, they're the load-bearing walls. Here's where it gets demanding. And I won't pretend otherwise. Sensory vividness takes effort that a lazy mental slideshow never asks of you. It's the difference between glancing at a recipe and actually cooking. Hands covered in flour. You have to slow down. You have to stay in one imagined moment long enough to let the details bloom, instead of skipping to the next highlight reel. Most people can't sit in a single scene for 90 seconds without their mind bolting to their phone. That restlessness is the real reason their inner work stays shallow. And there's a second wall right behind the first. The richer your imagined scene, the more your mind objects. A vague picture of success slides by unchallenged. But the moment you feel the cold door handle of a place you can't yet afford, smell a life you haven't built, some part of you sits up and says, "Who do you think you are?" That resistance feels like a stop sign. It's actually proof you're doing it right. You only get challenged when you've imagined something real enough to threaten the identity you currently hold. Stay with that for a second, because it's the whole game. The flat visualizers never trigger that resistance, which is exactly why nothing ever moves for them. No friction, no change. The vivid ones run straight into the wall of their own disbelief. That wall is the border between who you've been and who you're becoming. And the only way through it is repetition, returning to the same fully loaded scene until the smell of that life stops feeling like a costume and starts feeling like home. This is the part nobody romanticizes. You'll have to imagine the same vivid scene dozens of times before it stops feeling like a lie. Each pass, the texture gets a little more familiar. The creak of the floorboard, the chime, the cold handle. The first time it's theater. The 40th time, your body stops flinching because you fed it the same multisensory evidence so many times it can no longer tell the difference between a future it built and a past it lived. That's the imprint setting. Slowly, like cement, not like a switch. There's a reason this hits harder for people building something of their own. When you're constructing a project, a skill, a body, a business from scratch, you live in a gap. Every single day, the reality in front of you contradicts the thing you're trying to become. The bank balance argues with the vision. The unfinished work mocks the plan. A flat mental picture has no chance against that daily wall of contradicting evidence. It's too thin. But a scene loaded with sound and texture and temperature, that fights back. It gives your subconscious counter-evidence with the same richness as the discouraging stuff your eyes report all day, because that's what your sense of what's real and possible for me is really running on. Evidence. Raw sensory data, logged moment by moment. Your current self-image was built from thousands of richly textured real experiences, and a thin cartoon of the future can't outvote them. You're trying to win an argument against your entire lived history using a stick figure. No wonder it loses. Match the format. Bring evidence as vivid as theirs. And the vote can actually shift. Watch what this does to the way you work in the real world too. The person who has imprinted a vivid scene of their thing already done carries it into the day like a tuning fork. They sit down to build, and the work feels like walking toward a place they've already been, instead of throwing effort into fog. The flat visualizer has no such pull. They grind on willpower alone, which runs out by Tuesday. The vivid imprint becomes a quiet gravity, bending your ordinary choices toward the version of you that already lives there. You answer the message differently. You ship the thing instead of polishing it for the 9th time. Not because you forced yourself, but because some part of you is acting on behalf of a self it now considers real. And this is where the discipline pays you back. The hardest stretch is the first 2 weeks, when the scene still feels like a lie and the resistance is loudest. Push through that, and something changes about the effort itself. The scene starts running on its own. You no longer have to drag yourself into it. It comes to find you in the shower, on the walk, in the dead minutes between tasks. The work that once felt like construction becomes maintenance. You're no longer building belief from scratch every morning. You're just keeping a fire lit that already burns. Let me sharpen one thing, because people hear sensory and start straining to hallucinate in perfect detail. You don't need cinema-grade resolution. A blurry image carrying real feeling beats a crisp image carrying none. The feeling is the smuggler. The warmth, the relief, the quiet satisfaction of the thing being done. Those emotional tones are what tag a scene as mine. This matters, remember this. Sensory detail is just the fastest way to summon real feeling, because your nervous system was built to respond to texture, not to abstractions. So the practice is simpler than the slideshow you've been running, and far harder. Pick one scene that represents the life being yours, already done, not the whole movie, one moment. Then walk into it through more than your eyes. What do your hands touch first? What's the temperature? What sound tells you you're there? What does the air smell like in that room? Hold it until it stops being a screen you watch and becomes a place you occupy. Then return tomorrow and the day after to the exact same moment, letting it deepen each time. You'll know it's working not when the picture gets prettier, but when the feeling arrives before you've finished building the scene. When the smell of that life shows up uninvited while you're brushing your teeth. When your default daydream, the one your mind drifts to in line at the store, has quietly become the new one instead of the old fear. That drift is the tell. You've changed what your mind reaches for in its idle moments, and idle moments are where your future is secretly cast. Most people will keep running their silent drone footage over the life they want, hovering above it forever, wondering why they can never seem to land. You don't have to be one of them. Drop down out of the camera. Put your hand on the cold door handle. Let it be a place with a temperature and a sound and a smell, a place ordinary enough to be boring, because boring is what real feels like. The future you keep watching from a distance has been waiting for you to stop watching and walk in. Reach for the handle. It was never locked.